Well, you're welcome to stay here till 2 in the morning, buddy.
They had online games.
They had online games.
You could go karting online.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, who helped you?
Nobody.
Really? You should be a philosopher, you know that?
I do like philosophy.
That'll be the next podcast. Philosophy lessons from Zach.
Completely Hamilton, this is the Complete Realtor Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to another podcast here at the Complete Realtor Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Machado, the Director of Growth with KW Complete Realty here in Hamilton. And today we're going to discuss a very, big news topic, somewhat controversial, but we're going to get to the thick of it. For years now, the story has always been this. The cloud brokerage has emerged. Leave your bricks and mortars brokerage, slash your splits, pocket the savings. And on paper, that seems fun and attractive, and hey, why not? No brainer. But a new trend is actually emerging. A lot of top agents who went to the cloud brokerage has caused them to come back, and specifically coming back to Keller Williams. Why? That's going to be the discussion today. You're going to meet three special guests here in the studio with us that are going to be talking about their story, their experiences, so that you can get the answer to the question why for yourselves. So starting with my first guest, Jason, why don't you introduce yourself, how long you've been in the business, and we'll just meet everybody in the room.
So I'm Jason Barry. I'm a commercial real estate agent with Keller Williams. I've been in the business for 3 years, and I did come from a cloud brokerage.
My name's Zach Towse. I've been in the business for 12 or 13 years. I'm a commercial realtor, real estate investor, and I also came from a cloud brokerage.
My name is Yousaf Khalid. I've been in the business 4 years, and I do both residential and commercial.
Right on. So you guys all came from cloud brokerages, but not all of you started there. You guys are partners in the business? Did you guys always work at a cloud brokerage, or did you transition to a cloud brokerage and then come back?
So I started with a traditional brokerage and then transferred to a cloud brokerage. Now I'm back at a traditional brokerage. So
I started at a brokerage similar to Keller Williams. It was a 200 agent for a single floor in Mississauga. I transferred to a boutique brokerage that I quite enjoyed. It was a consensus after that much of us transferred over to a cloud brokerage. We were going to try to keep the boutique feel, but utilize the newfound energy and technology of the cloud systems. And now I've transferred back to kind of more my original brokerage, which is bricks and mortar.
Okay.
I started here at this lovely brokerage, and then I switched over to a cloud brokerage. Now I'm back here.
Okay. So the reason why I wanted to point that out is so that most agents don't start at a cloud brokerage, right? I mean, a lot of the pickup that they got was attracting agents that were at a cloud brokerage, with the promise of here, better tech, better splits, and you can pocket all that savings, right? Now, I'd be interested to hear your stories. What initially attracted you to try or to go down the cloud brokerage model?
I think for me personally, it's still very new in my career. So it was part of the attraction was going to a larger brokerage, coming from a boutique brokerage as well. I was really sold on all the technology that the brokerage had to offer, and I'm personally a bit of a techie myself, so that was a bit attractive to me. Promised things were going to run smoothly. We're going to get all this extra help. It's gonna transform our careers. That's probably what attracted me to it the most.
Okay.
I think I made the switch because I was an independent agent. I had my own client base. I started to fail to see the real benefit of being amidst a team when you're really working independently, and the glory of the extra commission or extra benefits of being in a cloud system where you have a lot more technology and ability at the tips of your fingers because that's what they're aiming to provide, was advantageous. And that was why I made the switch.
Okay. Fair. And Yousaf, what was your story?
Similarly to what these guys said, it was basically what the cloud brokerage had promised and had offered was what ideally made me make the switch. And then...
And specifically, what was that for you?
It was a technology, profit shares, higher splits. It's basically all of that combined. And then...
Okay. So they got you in the door and, and away you went. What was the turning point for you guys that you kind of went, yeah, I'm not liking this anymore? Like, what was that specific moment for you? Maybe Yousaf, you go first. What was that for you?
I like being around producers. So when I made the switch to the cloud brokerage, I kind of wanted to be independent and start my own thing, rent my own office. But what I realized with that is most of the offices that I was going to rent had a 9 to 5. And I'd have to be done and out of the office by 5 p.m. Whereas at a traditional brokerage here, I could work past 5. I have people that are producing around me.
Oh, you're welcome to stay here till 2 in the morning, buddy.
It kind of keeps the spirits up. So
okay,
I like being around that.
Zach, what was that moment for you?
To me, it really came down to the dollars and cents. When you go to a cloud brokerage, they kind of promise you this more commission in your pocket. And when you take away a lot of the systems and they really try to save costs by being very AI driven, very tech driven, tech makes mistakes. Tech has glitches. An average transaction would take me 4 to 5 times longer. The fees and the splits were really not monumentally better. When you started to factor in the time and the energy to get our transactions across the finish line and to close things out, I was most likely missing out on future sales. One of the biggest things that started to come to me is I really desperately needed an assistant. I desperately needed an admin to take some of the tasks that the cloud brokerage put on me. And when you factored in that cost, it actually cost quite a bit more money for me to be at the cloud brokerage than it did for here.
So interesting. I want to dive into that because, the promise was we have the tech that will make it easier for you. But what you're saying, or at least your experience was, yes, although the tech was great, it actually created more work for me, which means I had to hire somebody to take on the extra workload.
The tech is only as good as the user's input. So if you were to input everything perfect the first time, then it would work. But, human error is rampant. So every time you would make a mistake, the tech would flag it. And what happened is they introduced additional forms, additional work. A single transaction that would take, let's say, 15 pages of forms was taking 30 because they would have forms that don't exist on the area side in order to better ensure that their tech didn't make the mistakes.
Gotcha.
But now you're doubling the number of forms and doubling the workload, and you're also in turn doubling your risk of making an error.
Wow. Interesting. And Jason, what was that moment for you?
Very similar to what Zach had said. I went into this with the idea, the belief that offices are archaic. It's a thing of the past, keep the fees down low. The technology is going to make things so much easier. It was very, very quickly. Just the onboarding process alone was a big mess. It was very, very difficult. There's a lot of frustrations because when I joined the cloud brokerage, it was in the spring market. So we were very busy trying to keep up with their clients and business and all that. On top of that, trying to get onboarded and figure out all this new technology. And the thing I noticed with the cloud brokerage is there's no support. Everything's online tutorials. There's no human to talk to. You can't just go ask a question. You're left to figure it out yourself. And that really, really slowed me down. And it just kept going that way. And just like Zach said, I found myself having to do 10 extra steps for what didn't normally take me 1 or 2. And yeah, I may have saved a little bit of money, but I realized my time is more valuable than the money. And my time doing all this extra work and fixing all these little silly things that normally wouldn't be an issue was taking away from my time going out and getting deals and getting new clients and all that. So in an essence, I was actually losing money rather than being a leg up with the technology or cloud brokerage.
So let me understand this straight. So the experience, it sounds like, or let me ask maybe a better question. When you had a deal that was going sideways or a file that was complex to, especially in the commercial field, deals are complex, right? Mm-hmm. So when a deal was complex to submit, or when you had a deal that was going sideways, like, who helped you?
Nobody.
Really? Like, there's got to be somebody you can email or phone call.
You would have to go through a chain where you could contact somebody. If you want to talk to your broker record, for example, you couldn't just pick up the phone and call your broker record.
Okay, so what does that process look like?
So you would have to go online through their portal. You would have to submit. They'd have certain dedicated. They didn't want phone calls, so they had certain dedicated, channels you would have to communicate through. And usually it was through an app. They had a special app that was set up that you would communicate through, and it was very clunky, I found. So a lot of the times I would end up figuring out the issue myself because it would maybe take a day or two for someone to actually get back to me. And in this business, you don't have a day or two to waste, right? Your clients, whatever the deal is being held up in that process. So I found, and that was my biggest issue, is I found there was no support, especially as being a newer agent, that I hadn't been in the business 20 years where I just knew what I was doing. I needed that little extra help I had questions, new things I experienced, I didn't have the answers to, and I didn't really have that support. So,
And I see you shaking your head over there.
Yeah, similarly to what he's saying, I think, as I said, environment, right? At a cloud-based brokerage, you don't really have physical people in an office that are walking around. So as you come into a traditional office, you meet people that have been in the business longer than you, that could definitely assist in the process. And same thing, the channels, it would definitely slow the business down.
So interesting, right? Because the message typically from the cloud brokerages is that because we're cloud, we're everywhere. But yet the experience that I'm hearing from you guys is you didn't feel like you were everywhere. You felt isolated.
Pretty.
Is that kind of
exactly
the consensus from it? But here's what I'm trying to understand, and especially for people that are watching that, because of market conditions or just where they're at in their business, they're playing with the idea of the cloud brokerage, whether it be for the tech or the savings and fees or whatever. I think this is something that I want to spend some time on so that they really understand what they're getting into. So you're telling me that if I'm with a seller on a Saturday night at 9:00, going over an offer, and the cooperating agent or the buyer agent sends me a complicated clause that I haven't seen before, and I'm concerned that my seller is going to sign off on this clause, I can't call the broker of record to get a second opinion on that?
You could get there, but it'd be difficult, right? And the contrast is like where we are now. I know our broker of record, I can pick up the phone and call within reason at any time, no matter where he is in the world, and he'll pick up that phone and answer, and I will have an answer by the time I hang up that phone and on to business. It was much more difficult with a cloud brokerage.
I think in order to make cloud brokerages work, we've tried to reduce the human interaction to leave more room for these profit sharings and stock options and things like that. But I mean, human nature by general has written books and directed movies on the fundamental differences between us and AI, or us and robotics. At the end of the day, humans create rules that robots follow. And for example, our brokerage that we were part of created a rule where when you sent a deposit, that deposit had to go to the person who was on the deal. Now, for all intents and purposes, that is a good rule. I had an incident where there was an investment property and it was a married couple, and only one of the two people was on the bank account that was associated with that investment property. So the brokerage just refused to release the money. And now you have tenants living in a place, but the owners never actually released the money. And in order to get this done, we had to climb a ladder through tech support to get a rule overridden. I think In the post-COVID era, a lot of people began to underestimate the importance of human decision. As a human, we have the ability to weigh things in terms of emotion and intelligence and idea, and look into the gray area and not necessarily follow a rule that shouldn't necessarily be followed at that specific time. Knowing that the couple's married, knowing that we had a letter from the wife saying, please send it to this bank account, this is where I want it to be deposited, their AI and robotics would not send that money. And it took us 2 to 3 weeks to put that money in that bank account. That client was very upset. And, if you look at losing that client and the potential loss of a lifetime of relationship with a client, we all know that 70 to 80% of all realtors' income comes from referral network business. And to have a brokerage make a mistake that could cost you your livelihood is massive.
And just to say with that, as Zach was saying that, it reminded me how often I heard that same story when I was at the cloud brokerage from numerous agents. My client did not get the money because of a technicality. And then you get a client on the other end that's very upset. And then that makes us look bad as agents that we're not doing our job. And what kind of brokerage are you with? Like, it's it just doesn't seem acceptable to be in that situation with your clients. So
No, and our reputation is everything, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, despite it wasn't on you, the client's experience can never be erased, right?
Well, we're the face of the brokerage. We're the face to the client. So.
I mean, and despite our best efforts to fix the wrongs in a transaction or relieve some of the hiccups that a client will endure during a transaction, at the end of the day, the client always remembers the hiccup, right? And once is fine, but like you said, if it becomes a pattern, when they're looking to do their next move, they may think twice, right?
Well, and I think a lot of clients don't even know necessarily which brokerage a realtor is part of until that brokerage becomes a subject matter. Yes. So, when you're whether you're with Remax or Keller Williams, it really doesn't matter. If we make a mistake, it's on us. But if we now blame the brokerage for the mistake, that brokerage now represents every realtor and every client of every realtor. So when you have a brokerage make a mistake to the client and the realtor, obviously trying to defend our own reputation, says, it's not us, sir, ma'am, it was the brokerage, it's their mistake. Do you think that client would work with that brokerage anymore? And I think that's a catastrophic failure. You want to make sure that your brokerage is the best represented source. I'd rather take the mistake on myself, because maybe if they don't want to work with me, they can work with Jason or they can work with Yousaf. But if they don't want to work with Keller Williams, I've done a disservice to every single agent in this office, and that's not fair.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, on the topic of client satisfaction and dealing with a brokerage and all that kind of stuff, sometimes agents, when taking the plunge, joining a new brokerage, whether that be a cloud or a traditional, doesn't really matter. But it's very big when you've made the leap to a brokerage and then have buyer's remorse and want to come back. Right away, an agent's limiting belief becomes, well, what are my clients going to think? Now, let me ask each of one of you, how did your clients react when you came back? Did they even care? Yousaf?
I don't think most clients look at the brokerage you're at. I think you're the face of the company and you're the one that's really representing them. Obviously, there is the brokerage behind you, but I feel like nobody really noticed when I made the switch. I was still the one representing them. They look at how I did the service to them rather than how the brokerage did service to them. I don't feel like there was any difference.
Yeah. What was your experience like?
I think when you're part of a cloud brokerage, we don't use the brokerage as often as we do when we're part of other brokerages. When Remax was the predominant brokerage in real estate, Remax agents specifically would tell their clients that they're a Remax agent and that's why they should work with us. Keller Williams is the largest brokerage in terms of agents in North America. It means something. We enjoy representing that. But when you're part of a cloud brokerage, you're you. We don't use the cloud brokerage to help embody us in terms of our, ability to do something. In commercial, it goes a long way to have a tangible brokerage behind you. In commercial, a lot of the guys are business owners. they want to know that you have some experience and some real, people behind you rather than just somebody sitting at a computer desk somewhere, potentially not even in this country.
Well, you, Jason, that your clients notice or care that you made a move?
It wasn't a big deal for them. It was hard extra work on my part to make sure that they didn't care. So the hiccups, as I mentioned earlier, the transition was very difficult, and that was always on the forefront of my mind, is to try and make sure that there's no hiccups for my clients.
Right.
I'll take on all that stress as much as I didn't want to, but to make sure my clients had a smooth transition, I think I pulled it off, but it was tough. And I don't think it should have been as difficult as it was.
Okay.
So,
And what was your experience when you came here in terms of onboarding and letting your clients
I mean,
know?
my clients again were great with it, but the onboarding process here was a breath of fresh air. It was just so easy, especially coming from what I was experiencing at the cloud brokerage, which was I would say is a nightmare what I had to go through, to coming here, and it was just like easy. It was just like done so quickly. It was literally within a couple of days, everything was done, and I didn't even have to do 80% of the work, because there's people here that are really good at their jobs that made it very easy for me to transition. So,
Okay. Good. Well, thanks for sharing that. How was your onboarding process coming back?
It was a lot smoother than the cloud brokerage, I would say. The support was there. So I feel like the cloud brokerage, I had to do most of the onboarding stuff myself, whereas here they would ask you what you need and they would support you to actually make the move. So that was a lot more easy for the whole transition over here.
we actually, we all experience this. We have someone come into the office and meet with us and sit down with us and spend hours with us to make sure we're onboarded, one-on-one. You don't get that at a cloud brokerage. You're like, here you go, figure it out. Watch a tutorial on YouTube. Right?
So, I mean, that is a common thing that, and for better or for worse, we've all done it. It's like, why pay for this or why do that when I could just watch a video on it? And we've all done it. It's like, why am I going to buy a new dishwasher? I could just watch a video on how to fix mine, right? And then you get started and realize you don't have half the tools that it takes to take the dishwasher apart. And by the time you do, you have water everywhere and you don't remember how to put it back, despite watching the detailed video, right? How enthused are you as a realtor to watch a video on how to do something? Or are you more excited to just ask somebody how to do something?
I definitely just like to ask somebody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. Zach?
Yeah, I mean, the support systems. I mean, when you signed yourself up with the cloud brokerage, it was an online phone app, and it was page after page after page of all these forms. And when you're all done, you kind of looked at yourself and went, I'm not confident if my commission check's going to end up in my bank account or not. I don't know if this is done, and there's no way to double check. Whereas when you came to a conventional brokerage and sat down with somebody, the next day that person came to you and said, by the way, you're all set up. And I went, great, how do I get paid? And they went, it'll just be in your account after the transaction's done. And I was confident because I knew I had somebody who oversaw it. But when I did it all myself, I was less confident that, what if I made a clerical mistake? What if my money ends up in somebody else's account? And you really don't know, because there's a certain level of uncertainty and you have nobody to kind of make sure that you did it right.
I feel like it's easier said than done. It's like watching a video, you think you could do it, and then it becomes stressful when a client's blowing up your phone and you don't know how to do it. So that becomes an issue.
Oh, man. Now, speaking of having people to support you in the brokerage and all that kind of stuff, and watching training videos. Now, and we have our own training videos. I mean, because that is a choice for some people. Mm-hmm. But we also do a lot of in-person training, in-office meetings. How has that experience been for you guys? Like, do you see the benefits in in-person training? Do you think all training should just be Zoom links, videos? What's your take on that?
I feel like it's very beneficial to have the in-person trainings. One, because you get to be around other agents, you get to network, and then two, if you're in a situation where you don't know what to do, and there is a training that's specifically designed for it. You go attend that, and most of the things that you're having a difficult time with, it becomes a lot more clear on how to deal with that. And there's actually somebody there versus watching a YouTube video that could answer any questions you might have. Try asking YouTube a question, you won't get the answer.
COVID ruined this for me. I've been an investor for 12 or 13 years at least. And I used to go to networking events, and you go to big conference halls with hundreds and hundreds of other people, and you would learn how to be an entrepreneur, how to assess properties, how to rent things out. And, if you didn't necessarily understand what the speaker was saying, you turned to the friend next to you and said, did you understand that? And there's a real importance in human interaction and being in those rooms. And when COVID hit, everything went digital. And everybody was like, this is great. I don't have to pay for a hall anymore. But I mean, not that many people are logging on. Ever since that, I've never logged on to an online kind of training for investing because I think I lost the most fundamental reason for being there. And that was to be around other people. And that goes in every aspect of training there is. I can attend a training course on FinTrack or doing your paperwork, and I'm sure it'll give me some information. But if I forget one piece of information on that online training, I don't have a person next to me or somebody that I can now reach out to or a new phone number for somebody that I met to be able to help refresh me. We learn better from our peers than we learn from our teachers. And I mean, that has been present in school since we were in JK.
Our office is right outside where we host all the classes. So, even if I'm not at them, I often listen in on them. But one common theme I noticed throughout these classes is obviously Keller Williams has a lot of them. They're very valuable, and whoever's ever teaching that class is very knowledgeable. But it's also the people that are sitting in that class. Because, you watch a video, you just get the information. This is what it's like in a perfect world. If nothing goes wrong, this is what you do. But that's not the reality of it. So, you often get people raising their hand. What about this? This is my experience. And how would I handle this? And you start getting real world examples that you would not get online just simply because you're around a bunch of people. You get to ask the person hosting the class questions about your own personal experience. You can't ask a video a question. This is the information, do what you will with it. So, that kind of training I think is so valuable, just physically people being in the same room together to be able to collaborate, like Zach said,
So obviously, I mean, I agree totally. I mean, especially for the soul and your mental health, in-person events are by far the greatest things. Now, specifically in your businesses, how has in-person training or in-person office meetings helped your business specifically?
I mean, I'll use an example about my mentor's business because it's probably the best example that I was ever taught. And I have examples in my own life, but they're not as impactful. But my mentors have taught me a lot. I attended a conference in Las Vegas for, I think it was about $8,000 or $9,000 for the weekend. Very, very expensive course, big conference, lots of speakers. And they talk about this as when they started their business in real estate, they had very little money. They put all their money into marketing. They were working out of their garage. They were grinding. They were going door to door. They took this course to help lift up their business, to bring it to a next level. And they said while they were there, they had never been so disappointed in their life with the information being provided to them. And during one of the lunch breaks, they were almost ready to get on a plane and fly home. And they bumped into somebody else at that same training seminar. And the person was talking to them about this idea of rent-to-own homes. And this theory wasn't really present in Canada at the time. And when they came down here, they started an entire brokerage entirely based on just rent-to-own homes. And they currently make 8-figure incomes. So, I mean, I think sometimes people lose the fact of maybe it's not about exactly who's teaching it, but you lose the fact that there's so much value in the room around you. Even if the information being provided to you, maybe you already knew all that information. Mm-hmm. But, something so small, something so insignificant, by being there in person, you completely change the dynamic trajectory of your entire life to go from being dead broke to being an 8-figure earner.
Yeah, I think it's whether or not you've been in a situation, right? Hearing the experiences of other realtors that might be going through something similar as you, or, might be an issue that you might face down the road, at least you know that that person has been through it. If you do face something similar to them, you could always pick up the phone, give them a call.
Yep.
I think that's super beneficial.
So, and again, it's back to that networking thing, right? Now, on top of the training and in the in-person meetings, you guys all have office space in the office, right? So, which is kind of interesting because you were at a place that you went to because it's like office space is overrated. I'm going to save that money. Do cloud agents actually pocket savings by not having brick and mortar space, or does having office space actually boost your income?
I think there's a percentage of the population that, working from home, creating a home office works. And I'll never deny that people exist that works for, but I will deny that it is absolutely not the majority. That I think, most people, when they create their office space at home, that's their home. That's not your office. And we have the ability to create mental blocks and mental divides. When on a day that I choose not to come to the office and I work from home, I am not as productive as when I'm in the office. Hands down.
You're laughing.
Yeah, I agree.
And tell me about that. Why aren't you as productive?
I mean, it has to do with the way that we classify the space that we're in. I think all of us put on different masks depending on the type of space that we're in. And when we're at home, we put on the bathrobe and the pajamas, and that's just our sense. I mean, I knew a lot of people who work from home and they'll get up into a full suit and tie because they have to convince their brain that they're going to the office.
I totally agree, because when I worked from home when my kids were young, right, as soon as my daughter was born, I promised that I would work from home because I wanted to be there for the little moments. And I actually had to dress the way I dress today to work from home because I had to get into that cycle. Otherwise, there was no working from home. Like, there just wasn't, despite my best efforts, right? Or you would, but the phone just was heavier. I don't know what it was. Like, my phone is lighter in the office than it is at home.
And I think people work from home to have all this extra family time. Oh, I imagine if you work from home, you'd spend all this extra time with your kids.
Nope.
The fact is, when you work from home, home is now your office. And you will try to avoid your kids in your office to get the work done. And then it's hard to detach yourself from that. So then I think that, a lot of people work from home for the principle of, well, I'm going to have all this extra time to see my family. I don't have to drive. I don't have to do this. I'm going to have so much extra time. You don't. You actually have less time. And if you spend any of that time interacting with your family, you're never going to get anything done. So you may as well not have gone into work at all.
What's your experience been like having
You
an
know,
office?
it's funny you say that you dress up at home to go to the office, because I remember before I even got into real estate, some of my own home businesses that I had, I would do the same thing. My wife would make fun of me. Why are you dressing up when you're at home? You could just put your pajamas on. And then she finally got it. It was a psychological thing, But it was agree 100% with Zach that you actually, what I found my personal experience was I was working anywhere from 100, sometimes 120 hours a week, doing it from home. I did not see my family because my home office was also my work. It was my home. I had all these distractions, all these things. I just was less productive. So what I had still had the same amount of work. I had to stretch it over longer periods of time. I noticed when I came here, and one of the benefits to my personal family was to be able to separate those two spaces. So when I leave here, I'm home with my family at night, and I focus on them instead of like carrying over work at home. And obviously, as realtors, the odd thing we have to do at night if we have a deal, sure, we got to do it, right? But I found I'm way more productive here. I get as much done. What I would used to get done in 12 hours at home or 15 hours at home, I can get done in 8 or 9 hours in the office because I'm focused only on work when I'm at the office. And I have people I'm working around that are also being high producers that are motivating me to keep going. I can't be the lazy guy in the office when all these people are working, right? So I found exactly that. I was able to get more work done and have more valuable time with my family when I left the office.
What about you, Yousaf?
Similar to what Zach said, I feel there are people that could work at home, but my mind does not function like that. I feel there's a lot of distractions, especially if you're living with your family, right? Like, I mean, they'll come in, they'll tell you to do something. They don't think you're at work because you're working from home, right?
Right.
And then on top of that, it's like, if a client wants to meet you, do you really want them to come to your house to meet you? Like, it's not, I don't feel, especially sensitive topics, if you're going to talk to your client, you want to meet them at Tim Hortons, you can't really openly talk to them without people around you hearing that conversation. And I don't feel that they feel comfortable with that either. Whereas, whereas when you're at a physical office, you
I mean,
have space.
you're discussing people's finances and
Exactly.
their biggest financial investment of their life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, commercial even more so. You know, the financial conversations are even bigger. But even with it, just a first-time buyer, I mean, this is the most amount of money they'll ever spend. You're talking about vulnerable scenarios like their credit report and down payment money, and you're right, in a public setting with noise and chaos and distractions. You know, I was never one to meet clients in places like that unless I just finished showing homes. And it's like, hey, we're going to stop and discuss which one you want to offer on. Grab a coffee, sure. But for the most part, I agree totally. Like, meeting a client in the office really changes the relationship, but also I think elevates you as a trusted professional.
And sports psychology has kind of shown this, you know, in a lot of sports, you compete in heats. Not because you're competing against the people next to you, because at the end of the day, in that specific sport, you could just be hitting a time. But if you're running completely a 100-meter dash and you're by yourself, you have no real reference point to know who you want to beat, to know who you want to compete with. If you're at home around people that are playing with toys or cooking food or whatever, those are the people that our brains are isolating at competing with, which means that we will function exactly at that level. Versus when you're at an office and maybe the person right next to you just closed a really big deal, that motivates you to want to be a person who also gets to close a deal. You need something to talk about around the water cooler.
Speaking of water coolers, some agents actually think that working in the office is more distracting because of water cooler talks. Do you guys find that's the case?
I haven't found that.
I think it's self-determination. I think that like there's a healthy attitude to take a break, to release your mind, you know.
Thank you. That's where I wanted to go.
We can get into Jason and I have gotten into some pretty stressful conversations with people, and realtors often ask questions, especially culturally, that not a lot of people want to answer. When you ask somebody how much money is in their bank account, very few people actually want to tell you. And, you know, we can get into very intense personal conversations that, you know, if we were all wearing heart rate monitors and stress factors, like, these are stressful. There's something to be said about taking that time off to have a cooling off conversation with somebody, to go back to that environment where you're having high stress, high emotional. I mean, it's not rare for realtors to have to sell a house because somebody is losing it because they're in so much debt. I mean, we go from hyper happiness emotional to hyper depressed emotional, and we need to be able to remove ourselves and then reinsert. And certain realtors are probably better than that or than others, but it's very important.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, I see it all the time here within the office. Like, you know, it's no coincidence that the top producing agents in our brokerage have office space. Like, I don't feel that's a coincidence. Even when I was with a competitor brokerage, that story didn't change. And I noticed that many of the ones that had office space did the water cooler chats or having coffee and chit-chatting for 20 minutes a day. You know, a lot of times they would do business together and collaborate or co-list something, or, hey, I got a buyer for that piece of property you have. They actually did more deals together. Mm-hmm. Have you guys had that experience yet here at the brokerage?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been able to do more business with people in the office just because you've been here?
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, we're actively doing business, the three of us right now, and Jason and I never met Yousaf before coming to this office.
Yeah.
I mean, having skills in different areas of real estate, whether it be, you know, I'm trying to purchase a piece of farmland for myself. I don't know that much about farmland. Having an agent in the office that's done it before can help educate me on how to do it, all of a sudden your knowledge gets multiplied by the people that you work with. And before you know it, Henry Ford once said that he didn't know how to build every component of a car, but he just needed to have access to the phone to be able to call the person who did. And being in an office gives you that phone, gives you that distance of communication that allows us to go, hold on, I don't have the answer to that question, but I'll have it for you in a minute or two. And go and reach out to somebody who has it. And it's obviously yielded. Jason and I, being the commercial team, we've had relationships now with 4 or 5 different agents in this office, and it brings us incredible joy, because when we help somebody make a $5,000 commission check, which ultimately would have been zero, because we can help get a commercial deal across the table, which they might have referred completely out or just turned down. Now, they've got to do something they didn't get to do before. They know something that they maybe didn't know before. And you've created new relationships with people that can be lifelong.
I think the one word that keeps coming to my mind with all of this is culture. You don't have a culture at a cloud brokerage. It just does not exist. I've noticed at Keller Williams, culture is big. You actually have a sense of community we have the same agents in the office all the time. We see each other, and I would honestly consider we're more than just colleagues. We're friends at this point, and we're all there to support each other. And just knowing that, it gives you that extra confidence, knowing that you don't have to know everything. You have people in there that will generally want to help you, and vice versa. And teaching classes, Zach taught a class the other day, and I'm sure he felt like a sense of giving back to help people, and I think we all feel that way, just to see each other every day. You don't get that at home when you're sitting in your home office.
Well, I want to thank you for touching upon that, because I've always felt that what I've always loved about this company, and specifically this brokerage, is always been the culture. And it's always so hard to get that across to an agent that's looking at joining the company, to really understanding what that is. And I think you've touched base on it, but I'd be curious to hear your both opinions. Like, when you think of the culture of the office and the KW culture, because I believe every brokerage has culture, it's just different. Maybe not the cloud brokerages, I don't know. But like, Yousaf, for you, like, what is KW culture to you?
I feel like it's fun. It's everyone knows how to have fun. Everyone has good ideas, or bounce ideas off of each other. Contacts. You might not have a contact. I might not have a contact, but Jason might have a contact. He might not have a buyer directly, but he might know somebody that has that buyer that could bring that buyer over to me. Could potentially put money in my pocket. Right? So I feel like there's all those different components that kind of has a play with the culture here at KW.
Now, you said something that it's fun.
Yeah.
Talk about that, because you lit up when you said fun. So give me an example of that.
Oh, like awards, right? KW awards. We have events here at the brokerage. So we'll have food, drinks. Everyone's having a good time, music. So I feel like that it's a good reset. We do business. From business, it should also be fun.
Yeah, agree.
So I feel like it's a good reset for agents to come together and kind of let loose of the business.
And celebrate your wins.
Exactly.
Zach, what's culture to you? Or
I remember reading a book, and they said that a lot of people look at money as scarce, that you got to go into a jungle and try to find the tree that houses the money so that you can pick some off. And they said that money is endless. Money is made up. It's fabricated. You go down to the ocean, and if you were to take a bucket and scoop a bucket of water out of the ocean, do you actually really see the impact of the water that you took out? And that's basically our economy. We have trillions of dollars that circulate through, and we can just go scoop out 10,000, and it doesn't really we don't make a blip on what's actually happening. And somehow in the real estate world, and I'm sure every realtor has experienced this at one point in time, there are so many realtors at war with each other. They're literally like, you're going to steal my clients. I've owned a construction company for 12 years, and I've worked with a lot of realtors, and I actually had a realtor refuse to refer her client to me because they thought that I'd steal the client as a realtor. And I said to her, but if I stole the client from you, I would have one client. But if I do business with you as a contractor, I have access to all of your clients, which could be 10 or 15 or 20. The benefit to me by maintaining a relationship with you is endless. And the benefit to me to stealing your one client is one and done. And being at Keller Williams really, really embraces the fact that I think almost every agent that we work with understands the endlessness and the inevitability of money. They have no problem, having you handle the transaction because you're more experienced at it, and you have no problem returning the favor, because collaboration as a whole yields a much more positive result than independency ever will.
No, I appreciate you saying that, because it is true. Statistically, we've proven that Keller Williams as a brand worldwide actually has the highest referring agents. Like statistically, agents will refer business to one another at a higher rate than any other brand. Like our agents don't want to drive to Toronto and vice versa. Like we see it all the times. KW agents from Toronto don't want to drive to Hamilton. They'll call our office and let one of our agents deal with it. They're not scarcity mindset, right? It's just like, hey, like there is, even in this market, there is enough transactions. There is enough clients for everybody, and I love the fact that you shared that. But I don't want to go to too much boasting about KW, although I love it. Don't get me wrong, because we are the best. Because I don't want this to be a frown upon the cloud brokerage, right? Because you know what? I do believe every realtor excels in the right environment for them, and for some people, that is the right environment, right? So on that note, I would like you guys to just share one thing that, you know what? This is the one part about the cloud brokerage that I did enjoy. What would that be? Not all at once.
They had online games.
They had online games.
You could go karting online.
Really?
Yeah.
No, you're joking.
No, seriously. You could, with other agents, like you could have an agent that's in a whole different city and they'll be go karting with you. Like you could chow with them while you're go karting. So that was pretty cool.
Okay, well, you know what? To fill that void, maybe we'll do an in-person go-karting with the agents in the office to fill your void.
Okay.
I think kind of to pair off of what Yousaf is probably more alluding to is their drive to innovate in creativity. You're creating a cloud environment, but they, at their core, all cloud brokerages understand the importance of the office. They always have. That's why if you're looking at some of the cloud brokerages, they have their own virtual cities. They literally have a digital world that you can go to, and it gives you a little digital person to walk around to communicate with other digital agents. There's a reason they created that. They realized probably pretty early on that completely removing the element of the office was removing a big productive part of their own agents. So if I have to give them props, it's trying to bring the office into the cloud.
Okay. Jay?
I mean, the only thing I really think about is, I do applaud the focus on technology in a certain way. More so, technology is obviously a huge part of everybody's life. Whether you're a realtor or not, it's a big part of our lives, and there's a lot of benefits to it. Where I found the problem is trying to replace humans with technology, trying to replace that human interaction. All the things we've just talked about so far sitting here, technology can't replace those things. It never will. So, that's the downside of it. The positive thing, if you're asking me what I liked about the cloud brokerages, is there is a push on technology. It's just, I don't feel they've got it right. I don't feel it's been concentrated in the right areas.
No, I definitely agree with you. I do applaud them for their enthusiasm and effort on the tech development. I think that's definitely desired and needed in this industry. Tech can make or should make our processes better and easier and faster. But again, it's the processes. What I have noticed, and I'm sure your experiences would attest to this, is that when this market changed, especially to the drastic degree that we're sitting in right now, the tech is great, but there's a whole skill set that you need that tech doesn't solve in this market. All the tech can do is make the process of how you submit a deal or research something quicker. That's all it is. There's still a massive skill set required to deal with the relationship with you and your client to help them navigate such difficult turmoils of the market. Right?
Well, and humans over time have challenged our evolution. We try different things. I think brokerages like Keller Williams were born out of an idea of a cloud brokerage. You know, when we all worked in small satellite offices with 15 to 20 other agents, somebody at one point in time said, what if you had an office that could support 200 or 300 agents? And what if we could support them effectively where it would benefit the commission splits because now our overhead would be cut down? And thus we created the brokerages like Keller Williams out of that idea. And then we thought to go one step further. And what if we could remove the office space entirely? And I feel like over time evolution, we will find that spot where things fit the most. And you know, some people still fit into the small boutique brokerages. Some people fit into the brokerages like this one, and some people fit into the cloud brokerages. But, you know, I always think that, like, there's a reason why a lot of people always seem to always fall in the middle. A bell curve is always highest at its exact critical point. As you move further and further away, you have less and less people that fit into that exact model. And the cloud brokerage is kind of like that far side brokerage where it's like complete independence to produce results. But you have to understand that, like, the cloud brokerage was the idea that kind of helped build this one. We didn't have the cloud brokerage idea. We were kind of trying to create it, and this was an evolutionary step to get there.
Yeah.
And maybe some of it's gone too far, maybe it hasn't. But I mean, I think it's all still kind of evolving.
It's funny you say that because you're right. So the true story of how Keller Williams was born was the idea of being the intradependent agent, because up until that point, real estate was the brokerage was really the company, and you were just an employee of the brokerage, and that's how it worked. And Keller Williams said, well, hey, there are some agents that can find their own clients, do their own thing. Let's create an environment for them. And if they want to be part of a team, we'll have teams within KW they can join. But if they want to be on their own, they very well can. So you're right on that note. And where I think it's going now with the cloud brokerage, you saying the far left, I still think even more so we're now in that strictly middle ground, in the sense that, hey, we actually have some agents in our office that are completely still cloud. They're with Keller Williams, but they're cloud. The training that they do take is our Zoom call training. That's fine. They'd rather watch the video of the training session that took place than come in person, right? They may come in once a year to pick up an award, right? But because that's how they choose to run their life. But I think the biggest difference is that at any point in their career, if something comes up, like a deal at 9 o'clock at night, and they need assistance, they can quickly go out of cloud mode and plug into bricks and mortars, right? If they're having a tough funk in their business that week, where they're feeling like they fell off the horse, they can plug into a training for that week, get their boost, and then go back to being cloud. Like, that's the cool part here. You don't have to have office space in the office, although highly recommended. You can still work remotely. That's the cool thing, and plug in whenever you feel the need. But one thing I want to just kind of, before we wrap up, for people listening and watching this right now, you know, if they were in your shoes or just in a situation where they're thinking of making a move, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them about transitioning from a cloud brokerage to brick and mortar, or staying with brick and mortar? What's the one piece of advice you'd give them? Zach, I'm going to call on you first, because I've always called on these two guys first.
I think you kind of have to look inwards to what you think is going to benefit you the most. And I think the decision, has to be attempted to be made as objectively as possible. I think looking at, one thing or the other often kind of hyper focuses people. Truth be told, when I switched to a cloud brokerage, it wasn't my decision. The office was having a vote on the best place to go to, and the cloud brokerage was the clear winner. And I was basically following the crowd, and everybody was kind of like, this is the future of real estate. This is where you have to be. But I think the one thing that we see over time is Walmart was the future of retail when it first came out. Amazon was the broke bookstore. Amazon is the future of retail today. What do we think will be the future of retail tomorrow? And this idea has happened again and again and again, but the one thing that we will consistently see is a lot of the businesses that exist kind of in the middle, a lot of the businesses that don't try to be the complete offside, businesses like Crocs, when they came out, were huge because everybody wanted to buy Crocs. And then it all leveled off. Some of the new and fancy people, you're going because you're doing what I did, and you just went with the crowd, went with the flow. I think you need to really consider what is best for you and consider all of the options and how each option carries its own inherent benefits. Don't look at why something is the new and shiny choice, and look at really like, this is your business, this is your career, this is what puts food on the table, this is what your kids are going to know that you do, this is what's going to define your retirement. Is the place you're going to the place that you want to look back at and realize that is the place that actually brought you to your end of the life dream come true scenario?
You should be a philosopher, you know that?
I do like philosophy.
That'll be the next podcast. Philosophy lessons from Zach. Yousaf, what's the one piece of advice you'd give somebody who's currently looking at switching brokerages or potentially joining a brick and mortar or cloud? What's the one piece of advice you'd want to give to somebody?
I feel like the shoe that might fit you might not fit somebody else. Right? And I feel like what Zach said similarly, I think you have to take a step back and learn more about yourself and what suits you. Right? Because what Zach might be good at, say he works from home, I might not be good at that.
Right.
So different agents work differently. So I feel like that's like the biggest thing is understanding whether you can work from home. Personally, not for me, but if you can, kudos to you. I feel the office, it's for me. I need to be around people. I need to see people producing in order for me to produce. It's all mental.
Okay. And Jason, what would be the words of wisdom from you?
I mean, I'm going to agree with both of them. Very similar. Being honest with yourself as well. I mean, where you are currently in a situation, if you're working from home now, it's maybe a little easier to be honest with yourself whether you're a motivated person from home. But if you're at an office and you're, in your mind, I'm sick and tired of driving every day, getting up, going to the office. It would be so much easier if I just work from home. You think the grass is greener on the other side. You really need to be honest with who you are. Are you really that type of person that can stay motivated? This is probably why a lot of people switch back to offices after being at a cloud brokerage. But, I would also say, I got caught up in the advertisement of a cloud brokerage. This is what we can do. And they're going to tell you all the great stuff. And just assume that half of that's true and half of it's not true. My advice would be to make sure you really do your research, talk to other agents that are maybe there or been there, maybe left or still there, whatever the case may be, get their experiences and then try to relate it to yourself to make sure that, that's something that would work for you. Cut out all the noise and try to get to the truth and then make an honest decision out of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, all three of you guys, for coming in and sharing your stories, your opinions. I greatly appreciate it. I know our viewers and listeners really appreciate it. And again, none of this conversation is about one being better than the other. This is just a discussion on your personal experiences and what the trend was for years of the explosion of cloud brokerages and the new trend that's quietly making a powerful way of, producing agents coming back to the transition, because they're just realizing that, hey, those savings weren't exactly savings, it's actually more profitable sometimes for you, and if that's who you are. So for all of you out there listening, follow their advice, take a look at your situation, see if the move is right for you. If you have any further questions, our contact info is on the screen in case you want to carry that conversation further. Thank you for watching.